today's topic of our class is environmental health and environmental factors and pollutants impacting human health. This is part 3 of our lecture series. I didn't know that it will become this much lengthy, but due to the enormous importance of this subject, especially in today's era of climate change and all, so I had to deliver everything that I knew. So today is part 3. We will focus more on the water aspect of environmental health, and we'll discuss about the water pollution and its impact on human health. But before we move on to our lecture of today, first of all, we'll just have rewind the introduction. We already discussed this introduction in part 1 and part 2 of our lecture series. So the external or internal surroundings of human beings comprise of environment, which plays a crucial role in our health and well-being and productivity. The way we live by reflects in our surroundings and directly impacts the lives of all the living beings around us. Therefore, the study of environmental factors and their impact on human health is extremely important. So the learning objectives will be the important definition and brief review of part 2 of this lecture series, brief review of the previous class. Then we will, as I already told, today is the day for water. So we'll talk about water. What is the definition of safe water? Then uses of water, daily requirements of water, sources of water, water pollution, categories of water pollution, causes of water pollution, and then we delve deeply into the causes of water pollution. A, domestic waste, B, sewage system waste, and C, industrial waste, petrochemical waste, agricultural waste, and then there is one enormously important thing, the plastics problem. And then health impacts of water pollution. We will cover the impacts of water pollution on human health shortly. I will not be able to cover all of the health impacts of water pollution here, because if I start discussing the doctoral details of the health impacts of water pollution, then it will go beyond the scope of this lecture. Because if we just talk about arsenic poisoning or lead poisoning due to arsenic containing water or lead containing water, then there is we can deliver one separate lecture on the topic of lead poisoning and lead containing water intake and the impact on children. Then there is a separate impact on adults. Then there is a separate impact of adult females. Then there is a separate impact on pregnant females. So we will shortly discuss the health impacts of water pollution without going into the details, because if we go into the details, then it becomes a subject of medicine and surgery and not just environmental health. So important definitions. This is just a revision. You already know what is environment. The complex of physical, chemical, and biotic factors such as climate, soil, and living things that act upon an organism or an ecological community and ultimately determine its form and survival. That is environment. Then health is a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being of a person, and not merely the absence of disease or infirmity. Then environmental health, you people already know, we already discussed in part 2 and part 1. According to WHO, environmental health is a branch of public health science which deals with those aspects of human health, including quality of life, that are determined by physical, biological, social, and psychosocial factors in the environment. It deals with the study of those factors in the environment which can potentially affect adversely the health of present and future generations of human beings. So, brief summary of previous lecture. In previous class, we discussed the basic definitions. We are already discussing the basic definitions just for revision purposes. Then impact of environmental factors on human health were continued. We discussed the role of combustion engines. We discussed the role and the problems created by modern agricultural practices, we discussed deforestation, we discussed the radioactive waste problems, we discussed the increasing frequency and intensity of natural disasters due to climate change. So we discussed all of these things in our previous class. We discussed the problem created by combustion engines and the greenhouse effect and the warming of the planet. Then we discussed the hazards of modern agricultural product practices. We discussed about the leaching of the soil. We discussed about the eutrophication of the soil and the hazards of using excess amount of inorganic waste, etc. Then we also discussed about the deforestation problem. We discussed in detail about how the deforestation is destroying the habitat of animals and plants of our planet. Then we also discussed about the radioactive waste problem and the natural disasters and climate change. And today's class is about water. In this section, we will cover all of the environmental and health impacts of water-related problems. So what is water? Water is basically a solvent. Water is basically a universal solvent. I'm talking about the chemistry of water. It dissolves many things. It is a solvent medium for many minerals and many substances, including water-soluble vitamins, proteins, etc. So this solvent medium is 70% part of our body. Some books say 60%, some books say 65%, but some books also say 70%. So wherever there is water, there is life. So water is utmost important thing for the sustenance of life on this planet Earth. Therefore, if there is any problem with the water balance or water system on our planet, the living beings which are present on the planet directly get affected. So we will discuss all of the environmental impacts of water-related problems. So water, definition of safe and wholesome water. Safe water definition. The pure and fresh water is sparkling, colorless, odorless, and pleasant to taste liquid, which is free from pathogenic and any harmful chemical substances. The pure and fresh water is sparkling, colorless, odorless, and pleasant to taste liquid. It's not bitter, it's not sweet, it's not sour, it's not salty. It's colorless and odorless, but pleasant to taste liquid, which is free from pathogenic and any kind of harmful chemical substances. So uses of water. The use of water is broadly divided into three categories. Number one is consumptive use. The consumptive use of water is when we say use of water for irrigation of crops. So that is a consumptive use. Then there is partial consumptive use. The partial consumptive use includes domestic use, industrial use, institutional use, public use, such as public fountains, washing, and the use in fire brigade vehicles, etc. So consumptive use is like we use the water for irrigation of crops, and all of the water is lost. Some of the water is 90% or 95% of the water is absorbed by the soil, and 5 to 10% of the water gets evaporated. Then there is partial consumptive use, such as domestic use. We do not use all of the water. Some of the water gets recycled. Then there is industrial use. They also use some of the water, and then some of the water also gets recycled. Then there is institutional use and public use. We already know about the public fountains, washing, and fire brigade use, etc. Then there is non-consumptive use, such as recreational use of water. Then there is non-consumptive use in hydroelectric power generations, which only divert the waterways, and they They're not actually using water, they are just harnessing the energy from water by making it fall from some height and running it through a tunnel, and that tunnel is linked with a turbine. So basically they harness the energy of the falling water, and then that water is again re-entered into the river. Then there are water treatment facilities which take polluted water and make it less polluted. So that is also a non-consumptive use. Then we'll talk about daily requirements of water from one person. So the National Academy of Sciences and Engineering, and Medicine in USA determined that an adequate daily fluid intake is about 15.5 cups or 3.7 liters of water for men, and 11.5 cups or 2.7 liters of water for women. And a daily supply, and that is 15.5 cups and 11.5 cups for men and women respectively, is we are talking about drinking water. It's not daily use water. So 15.5 cups or 3.7 liters of water for men is the drinking need of man, a healthy man, in one day. And then a daily supply of 150 to 200 liters per capita is considered as an adequate supply to meet all the needs for all urban domestic purposes for one person. So for drinking purposes, we are talking about 3.7 liters to 2.7 liters for men and women respectively. But for all of the domestic purposes, we're talking about 150 to 200 liters per capita, which is considered as an adequate supply to meet the need for all urban domestic purposes. So if you look at this amount of water, like 150 to 200 liters per capita, living here in Pakistan, which is one of the most affected countries due to climate change, we are seeing severe droughts coupled with severe flooding in some parts of our country. We are not even getting 50 or 70 liters per capita per day. So that 150 to 200 liters per capita is like unrealistic here. Then sources of water. Water is an important natural source. The quantity of water available on Earth is huge, but its distribution is not uniform. About 3/4 of Earth's surface is covered with water. As you people already know, it's almost like 71 or 72% of the Earth's surface. And of all of this Earth's water, 97.4% of entire Earth's water is found in the oceans and seas, which is salt water. Of the remaining 2.6%, 2% is frozen in glaciers and ice caps, and 0.6% is available in liquid form as freshwater source. And of that 0.6%, 0.59% of fresh water sources in the form of underground water. And freshwater sources on Earth's surface comprise only 0.1% in the form of rivers, lakes, streams, ponds, and waterfalls. So majority of the fresh water on Earth is underground water, and the water present on Earth's surface is very less. Fresh water. And then we talk about the sources of fresh water, and freshwater sources are divided into surface water and groundwater. When we talk about surface water, it is stored in the form of lakes, ponds, streams, rivers, or man-made or natural storage reservoirs. For example, dams, etc. Then there is another source of water, which is a bigger source of water, that is groundwater. And the groundwater is fetched through open wells, tube wells, and springs, etc. So these are the sources of fresh water, which is already comprising 0.1% of the total water present on planet Earth, and 0.1% and 0.59% respectively. So the surface water is 0.1% and groundwater is 0.59%, and remaining 97.4% is found in oceans and seas. So water pollution. Water pollution is defined as presence of solid, liquid, or gaseous contaminants in such concentration that may alter the quality of water. So, if we have uh, a 5-liter can of water and we add dirt into it, or we add any chemical into it, then the water gets polluted, because pure fresh water should not contain any kind of chemical substance, any kind of harmful pathogen. And pathogens include viruses, bacteria, fungi, algae, or any kind of protozoa, or any kind of insects or worms. So anything anything present in water, whether it is solid, liquid, or gaseous contaminant, and it is in such concentration that alters the quality of water, then that water is deemed as polluted water. And then there is another definition: the addition to water of an excess material or heat that is harmful to the living organisms, or which impairs the beneficial use of water, that water is also called polluted. So whenever we add anything to water, whenever we add any material or any living being or any substance, whether it is solid, liquid, or gaseous, we add it to the water, and that is harmful to the living organisms which are using that water, then that water is not viable for beneficial use of those living beings. So that water is considered polluted. This image also shows the forms of pollution. So there is a huge sewage waste pipe dropping polluted water into fresh water source. Then there is an image. There are many images containing plastic waste and polluted water, etc. Then there are categories of water pollution. So whenever we talk about water pollution, we have to categorize the type of pollution we are talking about. There are point pollution, non-point pollution, and ground water pollution categories of water pollution. So what is point pollution? When there is one point source of pollution of the water body, such as a river or canal, then this is called point pollution. Look at this diagram. This diagram on the top left, that is the example. That is an example of point pollution. There is one waste water pipe draining all of the sewage water, non-treated sewage water, into the water source. Now that is point pollution. But if you look at other images, the water is not polluted through one single point. Some people are dumping plastics, some people are dumping bags, some people are dumping chemical substances, some people are dumping water. So that is the category of non-point pollution, when the pollutants are coming from various different sources, and the pollutants are not only in the liquid form, pollutants are solid as well, pollutants are gaseous as well. So when the pollutants are coming from various different sources, then that is called non-point pollution of waterway. Then there is groundwater pollution. So the groundwater pollution is a little bit different subject. It is defined as a pollution of underground water sources of any area. So groundwater gets damaged, or groundwater gets polluted via many different pathways. Like if you are using pesticides, if you are using excess inorganic fertilizers, if you are using improper sanitation methods, then all of these things are polluting the groundwater, and we do not know the exact source of it, but the groundwater is still getting polluted. Then we talk about the causes of water pollution. So we already know many causes of the water pollution. We will just briefly discuss all of these things. There are many causes of water pollution, such as domestic waste, sewage waste, industrial waste, livestock farming, and agricultural waste. Then there is sludge from solid waste treatment facilities, oil spills and petrochemical wastes, etc. So all of these things are causes of water pollution. So we will talk about domestic waste. It has become a common habit all across the globe, all across the humans of the globe, not animals basically. It has become a common habit all across the globe to put domestic waste such as paper, towel, plastics, diapers, and rotten foods on the banks of natural waterways, eventually leading into the waterways themselves. So basically, we are putting all of our domestic waste into the waterways directly or indirectly. What we do, we throw in majority of countries, we have seen in majority of slums or in majority of underdeveloped districts or in majority of unregulated areas, what happens, we throw all our garbage, paper, towel, plastics, diapers, rotten foods, whatever we get our hands on, we use, we throw it on the banks of natural waterways. What happens, eventually it leads into the waterways and it pollutes the waterways. Then there is sewage waste. When the municipal sewage water is thrown directly into the fresh waterways of any area, it results in massive water pollution, causing excess production of bacteria and other harmful microorganisms with grave consequences, which we'll discuss later on. So the sewage waste, it basically destroys the quality of water to the point that that water becomes infested with all of the harmful bacteria, viruses, and fungi, etc. But most commonly, pathogenic organisms which are present in the sewage related water is amoeba, anti-amoeba histolytica, and giardia, and all of the diarrhea or gastroenteritis causing bacteria. Then there is a bacteria related with cholera. Then there are bacteria related with typhoid. Then there are bacteria related with, and then there are viruses related with hepatitis A. So there, it is a long list. Schistosomiasis, leishmaniasis, many of the diseases which are directly related to the use of sewage waste, mixed water. So whenever we throw sewage waste or municipal sewage water directly into the waterway, we are creating too much of the health hazards for the people who are downhill to that water channel. For example, if a point A is near to the mountains and the river flows from point A to point B, then we should know that if the city A people or town A people are throwing all of the sewage waste into the river that is flowing by the city A, and we already know that city B is located downstream of that city, and city B receives water which is already being polluted from the waste of the city A, then those people who are using the waste mixed water of that same river for drinking purposes or domestic purposes, these people are getting affected. These people are getting sick due to the problem created by the people of the city A. So sewage waste just destroys the water quality. It destroys everything related with the healthiness of fresh water. Then there is industrial waste, all of the harmful chemical-laden wastewater coming from various industries such as pharma sector, textile sector, leather industry, paint factories, and various kinds of chemical plants, etc. It also results in direct destruction of all kinds of aquatic plants and animal species, normally occurring aquatic plants and animal species. I'm not talking about bacteria or pathogenic organisms because they do know how to grow even in chemical laden water supplies as well. So these kind of chemical laden industrial wastewaters result in destruction of all kinds of aquatic plants and animal species, meanwhile destroying the water quality beyond treatment as well. Then there is livestock farming and agricultural waste. So all of the animals waste being dumped in landfills and natural waterways, along with pesticides and inorganic fertilizer laden waters seeping into the groundwater aquifers, causing disturbance in the quality of water, rendering it harmful for the human consumption in future. So animal waste which is being dumped in landfills eventually gets mixed with the groundwater sources, and then it also gets dumped in natural waterways in some countries as well. And there are also inorganic fertilizers and pesticides which are being used all across the world, but more so in developed world. So all of these things, whenever they get mixed with the groundwater sources of any area or fresh waterways of any area, such as rivers, lakes, or streams, what do? They cause the pollution of that waterway, or they cause the pollution of groundwater source or aquifers. Aquifer is a huge groundwater pond or lake or reservoir buried in between the layers of the earth. So what is an aquifer? Aquifer is a huge source of groundwater which is buried deep into the layers of the earth. So whenever we are talking about groundwater, that groundwater is coming from groundwater source, which is the underground water, and most of the underground water is stored underground into the earth, under the earth's surface, in the form of aquifers. So these aquifers, whenever they get mixed with livestock farming waste or agricultural waste or pesticides or too much of inorganic fertilizers, the the fresh water of those aquifers gets polluted, and we use those fresh water sources, we use groundwater sources, and many of the countries are using these groundwater sources without any kind of like pre-treatment. Many of the countries use groundwater. Many of the communities, coastal communities or rural communities, use that groundwater directly. They do not use that groundwater um, in the pre-treated state. They do not have filters installed at every home. There are not as many water filtration plants in all of the rural communities, even in some kind of urban communities as well. So many of the times people are using that groundwater directly without getting filtered. And there are areas of the planet where people cannot afford water filtration processes. They are already getting the groundwater in an extremely difficultly. So there are no resources available everywhere to get the water pre-treated or to get the water filter. So basically, these countries are affected by the use of inorganic fertilizers, by the use of pesticides, by the use of agricultural waste being dumped in the landfills or natural waterways. Then there are other causes of water pollution, such as sludge from solid waste treatment facilities. So basically, the sludge is whenever we have solid waste treatment facilities. I'm talking about municipal waste. I'm not talking about just industrial waste. So there is municipal waste like plastic bottles, paper, towels, everything which can be burned. It gets burned into the waste solid waste treatment facilities. But these solid waste treatment facilities create huge quantities of sludge as well. And that sludge cannot be stored forever in any kind of underground container. So many of the countries throw that sludge in far-flung areas of the oceans, or in far-flung areas of the islands, which are just present in nowhere near the main land bodies, or main you can say some made continents or subcontinents. So all of these islands or far-flung areas of ocean are being used to throw the sludge. But then this sludge, which is directly coming from solid waste treatment plants, it gets dumped into far-flung areas of oceans and oceanic islands, and it causes habitat destruction of many aquatic animals and seabirds. And when these aquatic animals and seabirds start getting disturbed, the natural ecological balance of those areas starts getting disturbed. Because if there is a seabird which kills many type of fish, or as a specific type of fish, and if those seabirds start getting killed, then that specific type of fish will overgrow. And when that specific type of fish which was being killed by that seabird, but now we have started dismantling the ecological community of the seabirds, and now seabirds are vanishing, then when those predators, natural predators of that specific kind of fish are vanishing, that specific kind of fish will eventually grow in numbers. And when that fish will grow in numbers, it will damage, it will start eating, it will start destroying the habitat, other kind of fish or other kind of aquatic animal, and whole of the ecological balance of that community or that island will start getting disturbed. So that is the problem. Whenever we think of a solution, we are also creating a problem as well. And we also talked about such thinking in the previous lecture when we were talking about electric cars and the charging of electric cars, and the charging problem of the electric cars. Then I emphasized on that subject too much, and we already talked that if we have an electric car, but we are charging that electric car from the electricity which is coming from a coal powered electric power plant, then we are not using an eco-friendly car. We are not using an eco-friendly car, because what we are doing, we are charging our electric vehicle with electricity which is coming from a coal powered electric power plant. We are not using solar derived electric energy. If we want our car to be greener, if we want our car to mitigate the impact of climate change, then what we need to do, we need to charge our car with electricity produced from the greener sources as well. If the electricity is not coming from the green energy sources, then we are again charging our car with the electricity produced from fossil fuels. And one way or another, we are using fossil fuels for our car. So this way, if we are creating a solution for a problem, then we should know that that solution might also be a problem, might also create a problem in another way. So we have to, we need a holistic approach for this environmental health factor. And whenever we are talking about human health, we also have to take consideration of the health of the plants and animals and insects of that area as well. So oil spills and petrochemical wastes. One major pollutant of sea waters is oil spills from oil container ships and other types of petrochemical wastes getting mixed with natural water reservoirs, mostly seas and oceans. Petrochemicals are very harmful for marine life, resulting in death of all kinds of fish and other marine life. Then there is a very important and very grave problem of our planet, and that problem is the plastics problem. So every day, the equivalent of 2,000 garbage trucks full of plastics are dumped into the world's oceans, rivers, and lakes. And we already know that the plastic pollution is a global problem. The plastic pollution is a global problem. Every year, 19 to 23 million tons of plastic waste leaks into aquatic ecosystem, polluting lakes, rivers, and seas. And this data is from World Health Organization. So 2,000 garbage trucks full of plastics are dumped into the world's ocean, rivers, and lakes every day. And plastic pollution, which is annual basis, it's 19 to 23 million tons of plastic waste, which is getting leaked into aquatic ecosystem, polluting lakes, rivers, and seas, etc. In plastic, inventors found a light, durable material that can be used in everything from transportation to medicine. So plastic was a discovery of wonders. There used to be heavier cars, there used to be heavier machines, there used to be there used to be too much of a use of metal and metallic materials in everyday use equipment. But then the plastic came, and when the plastic got invented, the inventors found a light, durable material which could be used in everything from transportation to medicine. Plastics revolutionized medicine with life-saving devices, made space travel possible, lightened cars and jets and many types of machineries, saving fuel and pollution, and saved lives with helmets, incubators, and equipment for clean drinking water. But what the plastics caused? Now you look at this picture. That is the problem with the plastics. Whenever you create plastics, most of the plastic substances, most of the plastic material that we are using today, they do not get decomposed for hundreds of years. That is the basic problem. So we have created a wonder material in the name of plastics. We are creating too much of the substances. We are creating lightweight machines. We are creating this. We are creating that with the plastic. We are creating plastic shopping bags, which do not get digested by bacteria, and they keep wandering around all of our communities and localities and waterways of our areas for hundreds of years without getting decomposed. So plastic has made our life easier, but plastic is creating havoc on our environment as well. So whenever we create a solution, that solution becomes a problem in some other part of the world. Now, if you look at this picture, you can understand that all of the seaweed is mixed with too much of the plastic waste. Now imagine the misery of all of the aquatic animals which are living in this seaweed. They have to deal with all of this unnecessary problem, and that is the plastic, which they are getting choked, they are getting destroyed by ingesting microplastics, etc. The conveniences plastics offer, however, led to a throwaway culture that reveals the material's dark side. Today, single-use plastics account for 40% of the plastic produced every year. So we are using single-use plastic around 40% of the plastic which is being produced. We are producing single-use plastic. Many of these products, such as plastic bags and food wrappers, have a lifespan of mere minutes to hours. Lifespan of mere minutes to hours means that we use these plastic bags sometimes for minutes. We buy something from the market, and the shopkeeper or grocery store gives us that thing in a shopping bag which is made of plastic. We pick that shopping bag up, and our house is 2 or 3 streets away. We go to our house, we take the thing which was edible, or we take the thing which was needed, which we bought from the grocery store, a battery cell or anything. We took that battery cell or we took that banana out of the shopping bag, and what we did with the plastic bag, we threw it away. So it had a lifespan of mere minutes. We used it for mere minutes, and then we threw it, and it will remain in the environment for 300 to 400 years. We use it for 3 minutes maybe, but it will remain in the environment for 300 to 400 years, and it will not get decomposed by any bacteria. Now the scientists are trying to find a perfect bacteria which can decompose this polyethylene component of the plastic, but still they are not successful, and they have like achieved the results or like they're using some catalysts to help the bacteria decompose the plastics early. So what is happening, basically the plastic is getting decomposed, but at the pace of 2 to 3 years. So from 400 years, they have now achieved a pace of 2 to 3 years for getting that plastic to be decomposed, but that is not commercially viable. They cannot store that much amount of plastic for in a container for 2 to 3 years in any commercial factory, because that commercial factory will have to wait for 1 ton of plastic to get decomposed, and that factory will remain idle for 3 years. Like, unrealistic. That is unrealistic. So now they are trying to create a bacteria which can eat the plastic in a matter of weeks, which is also not commercially viable enough, but they are trying. And many of the people who make fun of the climate change, they are also making fun of those scientists as well. But like Thomas Edison or Nikola Tesla or Wright brothers, they are the real heroes of our today's era, because they are trying their best to get rid of this plastic problem for the entire world. So these plastics will persist in the environment for hundreds of years. Most of the plastic trash in the oceans, the Earth's last sink, flows from land. Trash is also carried to sea by major rivers, which act as conveyor belts, picking up more and more trash as they move downstream. Once at sea, much of the plastic trash remains in coastal water, but once caught up in ocean currents, it can be transported around the world. One example is the example of Henderson Island, which is in South Pacific Ocean near French Polynesia. So the Henderson Island is roughly 5,500 kilometers southeast of Hawaii. It's nearly 5,500 kilometers east of New Zealand, and it's nearly 1,500 kilometers away from the islands of French Polynesia, and it's nearly 4,000 to 4,500 kilometers away from the coast of the Chile, coast of the South America. So I'm just talking about these hundreds of kilometers to make you an idea that all of the plastic waste from Russia, from United States, from Europe, from South America, from Japan and China ends up there. It reaches there to an island which is 4,500 kilometers away, 5,500 kilometers away. And if we talk about Japan, it's nearly 12,000 kilometers away. And if we talk about China, the coast of China, it's nearly 13 to 14,000 kilometers away. And imagine the plastic waste being dumped by Japanese, or being dumped by Chinese, or being dumped by Russians, which are nearly 16,000 or 17,000 kilometers away, is finding its way to Henderson Island, which is in South Pacific Ocean, nearly 1,000 kilometers away from French Polynesia. Why is this happening? Because we have dumped vast amounts of plastic into the ocean. And the Pacific Gyre, the South Pacific Gyre, which is a circular ocean current, so to give you an idea of what is an ocean current, I will just talk about a little bit of, I will just give you an idea of what is an ocean current. So ocean current is basically the movement of water in the oceans due to temperature differences in different parts of the ocean. So basically, ocean is not a stable water, is not a simple, we can say that the water is not idle in the ocean, but the water keeps on moving in the ocean as well, from one part of the ocean to another part of the ocean. So the water keeps on moving in oceans as well. So, these plastics, which were from Russia, United States, Europe, South America, Japan, and China, all of these plastic waste which are dumped by humans in these parts of the world, it gets carried away to the South Pacific by South Pacific Gyre, which is a circular ocean front. And so Henderson Island receives all of the plastic waste of major parts of the world, and it is a research hotbed or research hotspot for all of the climate change activists and climate change scientists and anti-plastic use movements as well, because they are finding too many bird species, too many animals, dead bodies, which are directly dying due to getting choked with plastic wires, due to getting choked with plastic bags, and due to getting choked by eating too much of the plastic mixed with the seafood as well. So microplastic, a new health threat. Once at sea, sunlight, wind, and wave action breaks down plastic waste into small particles. And by small means microscopically small, into small particles, often less than 1/5 of an inch across, often less than 1/5 of an inch across. These so-called microplastics are spread throughout the water column and have been found in every corner of the globe, from Mount Everest, the highest peak, to the Mariana Trench, the deepest trough of the Pacific Ocean, which is 11 kilometers deep. So they took a sample of water from Mariana Trench, which is 11 kilometers deep, and they took a sample of water from Mariana. They took different samples from Mariana Trench, and when they examined the water, they found microplastics in the 11-kilometer depths of Pacific Ocean as well. Now look at the amount of plastic that we are dumping into our natural water reservoirs, that even Mount Everest, the great highest peak, and Mariana Trench are not safe now. So you can just imagine the amount of problem that we have created. So this is the life cycle of plastics. The plastic bags takes 20 years. And this plastic bag, which takes 20 years, it is a modified version of plastic bag. It is not the plastic bag which was being produced previously. It is the modified version of plastic bag. And the coffee cup, 30 years, then plastic straw, 200 years, plastic toothbrush, 500 years, the plastic cup, for 50 years, and plastic water bottle, which contains a thick layer of plastic. It takes 450 years to get completely decomposed. So that is the life cycle of plastics. So whenever we are using plastics, we have to take care about its whether we are going to dump it right away or whether we are going to recycle it again and again. So a solution to the plastic pollution is three market shifts. We need three market shifts in the plastic market. So first market shift is start reusing the plastic. Then we start recycling the plastic, and then we reorient and diversify. First of all, we reuse and reuse and reuse instead of just throwing it away. We discourage the single-use habits of the community. We discourage the single-use habit. Then if we are dumping, then there should be communities, or there should be a system of recycling all of the plastic, and then that recycled plastic should be reoriented to create another form of plastic, so that it is again used by human beings instead of being dumped into the waterways. So that is the three market shifts that are currently needed, and the scientists are proposing it, and the scientists are propagating it, so that all of the governments start taking it seriously, and they started working on these three market shifts related to the plastic pollution. Then there is another solution for the plastic pollution. So there are we need to reduce it, we need to substitute it, we need to recycle it, we need to dispose it, we need to just uh, eliminate it or vanish it. So if we go about business as usual, then we were creating, if you look at this million metric tons of plastics in 2016. We were creating 220 or 230 million metric tons of plastic in 2016, and that amount is projected to increase to 400 million metric tons per year by the time we reach 2040. So if we do not take action now, the problem will keep getting worse. So these are the projectiles if we go about business as usual. But if we start reducing it, then the curves are settling down. If you look at these curves, the blue curves and the green curves and the orange curves and the pink curves, so these are the curves are getting down. That is, it means that the plastic is getting reused and the plastic is getting reoriented, or the plastic is getting repurposed, and in some instances the plastic is being replaced with biodegradable materials or paper, because we already know that the paper gets decomposed within a matter of days. So if we just reduce the use of plastic, then all of this blue area gets vanished, and if we just recycle the plastic, all of this green area gets decreased, and if we dispose it properly, then all of the orange area gets decreased. So we go from 220 million metric tons to around 50 million metric tons per year by the time we reach 2040. So that is the actual goal, but that is ideal approach. That is the idealistic goal by climate change scientists who are working on it, because they want our plastic problem to go around under 100 million metric tons per year at least. The ideal is under 50 million metric tons per year, but the better, you can try as long and as hard as you can to diminish the problem created by these plastics. So health impacts of water pollution, we will just summarize this, because we cannot go into details of the health impacts, because it will go beyond the scope of this lecture if we start going to the details of the health impacts. But unsafe water, we will talk about the basic knowledge things, because you do not need a degree, you need not to become a doctor to understand the common sense that I'm going to talk about. So unsafe water has, so I'm talking about the figures of the UNESCO. So it is the United Nations body which has given these figures. I'm not producing these figures from my own. So unsafe water has severe implications for human health. According to UNESCO 2021 World Water Development Report, about 829,000 people die each year from diarrhea alone, caused by unsafe drinking water, sanitation, hand hygiene problems, including nearly 350,000 children under the age of 5. And these are the figures from 2021. And I was reading somewhere that by the time we are delivering this lecture, I mean today or this year, 2023 or 2024, these figures have touched 1 million. So the people dying from diarrhea due to taking unhealthy water, nearly 1 million people are dying every year. So these represent 5.3% of all deaths in this age group. We're talking about children. So 5% of the children are just dying just because of drinking unsafe water, which we ourselves have polluted. Lack of water and sanitation services also increase the incidence of diseases such as cholera, trachoma, schistosomiasis, helminthiasis. So we do know about cholera. It is a condition related with severe vomiting and severe diarrhea relating to dehydration, and this dehydration leads to death of anyone, not only children but adults as well, because it causes severe dehydration, and the people go into a hypovolemic shock, and that hypovolemic shock then leads to the cardiac and respiratory failure. I think I'm going into too much details, and okay, I'll stop it right here. So trachoma is a disease of eye, and schistosomiasis is an infestation with a worm, which is schistosoma, which is present in polluted waters, and helminthiasis is also the presence of worms into the polluted water, and then we ingest the water containing eggs of those worms, and we get infested with gut worms or liver worms, or and the worms which get infested into our body. So all of these problems are just because of drinking unsafe water. So data from studies in developing countries show a clear relationship between cholera and contaminated water. In addition to disease, unsafe drinking water and poor environmental hygiene can lead to gastrointestinal illness, inhibit nutrient absorption, and malnutrition. These effects are especially pronounced for children as well. According to WHO, in 2022, globally, at least 1.7 billion people use a drinking water source contaminated with feces. Microbial contamination of drinking water as a result of contamination with feces poses the greatest risk to drinking water safety. 1.7 billion, just imagine, 1/4 of the whole population on Earth. In 2021, over 2 billion people live in water-stressed countries, which is expected to be exacerbated in some regions as a result of climate change and population growth. Pakistan is also, my country, Pakistan is also water-stressed country because our per capita availability of water has decreased over decades. The natural presence of chemicals, particularly in groundwater, can also be of health significance, including arsenic and fluoride, while other chemicals such as lead may be elevated in drinking water as a result of leaching from water supply components in contact with drinking water. We will not go into the details of what arsenic-laden water and what fluoride-laden water and what lead-laden water does to human health. I will just conclude it here that it causes many adverse effects, especially in children. Have a nice day. Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you very much, Professor Dr. Omer Farooq Khan. I
Thank you,
personally
sir.
wish we could have you the entire day, as this topic of the reasons which get our water contaminated is really a crucial, critical one.
Very crucial. That's what I was talking about, sir. In the start of our lecture, that these topics need some extra time because I have to shorten many things. I have to choose what to deliver and what not to deliver, because these topics you can talk on for days. You can write books.
True. That is true. That is true. Not only can we talk about it for a long time, or we can also write about it to a large extent, but it is about our lives. It is about what we do every single day. And every human being, besides the politicians or those who have the power to decide, we each have a role to play. The way we handle our plastics, for example. But it's just not within one single household. It is everybody on planet Earth. Very unfortunately, we do not have enough time, as we've gone significantly beyond the allocated time. But if we have,
I tried my best. No,
nothing of your fault, Dr. Ken. It is a very, very satisfying way to, tackle the topic. You get into it and you feel that you should be able to use some kind of lever to push the entire world. And I understand very well, nothing of your fault. You said it at the very beginning that the topic is so broad, it should be broken up in very small chunks of segments. And you've done some other presentations on the topic, environmental health, but today going through that essential element of our lives, the water that we consume every second, not just every day. I drink water, and I have.
We are ourselves 70% water.
Yeah, it is fundamental, and it is important, it is vital to talk
Yeah.
constantly about this water problem. Eventually, a solution here, a solution there. When we combine all of them together, we possibly might end up with some kind of satisfaction for the entire world. If you have